Hello, welcome to A Course in Miracles 365, Awakening to Love. I'm your host, Tomás Garza, and I want to thank you for tuning in here today. We've got a really interesting show in store here because, as I mentioned at the close of yesterday's live stream, as we go through the workbook for students here in A Course in Miracles, we are beginning a review period, another review period. We've done a couple of these already, but we're going to go back over some ideas that we've previously covered in a new light. And perhaps you'll get a new take on those. You'll get a different twist. And what we're hoping for here is a new understanding. And in conjunction with yesterday's conversation, a new renewed, hopefully, commitment to practice. Oh, yeah. So thank you all for tuning in yesterday. We had some really wonderful discussion here on the show yesterday. And yesterday was Monday. So what I've been doing is I've been taking a one-day break from the workbook, which of course never goes anywhere, does it? And talking about a topic that comes up in life and talking about it in terms of universal spirituality, talking about it in terms of A Course in Miracles specifically. And we talked about commitment to practice yesterday and how we need to, as human beings, commit and recommit, and in other words, decide again and again in favor of love, in favor of God, in favor of Christ, the Holy Spirit, our own practice, our higher self with a capital S I'm talking about, right? Spirit, truth. Those decisions, well, there's really only one decision to make, and either we decide in favor of everything I just mentioned, which is you with a capital Y, or we side for the ego and fear and delusion and our continued round of abject suffering, punctuated with periods of what look to be extreme joy or periods of what we take to be contentment that doesn't last, life here in the world when we identify with the ego. So that is the choice that we make, love or fear. And we find that because of our conditioning, which of course none of us can help at all, we need to make that commitment again and again and again, as many times as we actually remember to do it, because a lot of the time when you think about it, we're in a fog. We're carried away by today's Twitter feed or something that we read in the news or a past due bill notice that we're trying to resolve and haven't been able to yet, things like that. Because we get carried away, we need live streams like this one. We need reminders. We need all of the signs and messages that the universe delivers, that your teacher, your guide, your guides deliver to you to remind you to return to the present moment, decide for love, and practice. And it's a commitment and a recommitment to that we all need. And we all need it because each and every one of us, no exceptions, has the tendency to want all of the results without doing the work. We all have a lazy streak, especially when it comes to spirituality, because there are practices out there that promise enlightenment in a weekend, aren't there? There are promises of enlightenment on a stick, on a silver platter. Yeah. And, they're all out there. We see them all the time because we're bombarded with the ads for things like that on social media. And what I said yesterday and will say again, there's no substitute for actually doing the work. It's impossible for us to get the result without the practice. Why? Because if we don't practice, we leave the ego's thought system 100% intact. And it has many different ways of going undercover, doesn't it? Hiding in the shadows, attempting to conceal itself. And why does it do that? Well, because it doesn't exist. And there's a part of this deluded mind that fears. The whole thing is really fear, but it fears that it's going to be found out, exposed for the nothingness that it is, and disappear, which is exactly what is our destiny, for that to disappear. But we've got to do the work to make it happen. So the question is, do you want to speed up that process? And because you're watching this, I know that the answer is yes. I said this yesterday, I'll say it again. Yeah, because you're watching, you know the answer is yes. And let's talk then, with this as a very helpful backdrop, about today's ideas. So we're in a review period. We're on lesson 141 in the workbook. And for the next 10 workbook lessons, what we're going to do is we're going to review 2 ideas a day that we've previously covered. They'll be related. And as you'll notice, each review period in the workbook of A Course in Miracles has a different approach to it. So for the next few review sessions, we are presented with an idea that we sit with first before we consider the ideas for review. It's very important, that idea for the next 10 days, and of course I'll mention it in conjunction with every single practice session, is my mind holds only what I think with God. My mind holds only what I think with God. How can that be? Only God is. Therefore, our minds hold only what we think with God. So we're told, and our experience also tells us, that our lack of forgiveness, in other words, our lack of miracle-mindedness, our lack of choosing love, gets in the way of our experiencing what the Course refers to as our real thoughts, our true thoughts, the thought we think with God, which are the only thoughts that are ultimately real. All of our delusions do not affect this truth at all. And that's the brilliance and the beauty of the fact that we're here right now, believing and knowing in our hearts that there's a better way, that there is a way out of suffering, which you do know that. Or you wouldn't be attracted to this. There's a lot of other stuff on YouTube, right? So our mind holds only what we think with God. However, all of our delusional thinking, all of our habitual tendencies tell us otherwise. So they obscure our experience of this without damaging the reality in any way, which is our salvation. That's beautiful. However, we have all kinds of deluded thoughts. I mean, think of all the things that we tell ourselves on a daily basis. I can't. I suck at this. I'm really bad at this. Yeah, I can't do that. I'm too old. I'm too young. I'm too vigorous. I'm not vigorous enough. Yeah, I have too many gray hairs. Oh, I can't do that. And then further deeper and more sub and unconscious, I am a human being. I am a man, I'm a woman. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. I live in England. I live in Africa. What's that, actually? They're all just words that we made up. I mean, they're all just words and terms that we use to identify ourselves while we consider ourselves as separate. That's duality. It's what's meant in world spiritual traditions by duality, is this subject, me, what we call me, an object, what they call that or you or something else that appears outside of us. And because our minds are so powerful, we've given that thought belief. We believe it, so it appears to us that way. Now, we could retrain our minds, and that's what A Course in Miracles aims to do. That's what spiritual practice aims to do, is retrain our minds. So how much differently would your life look if you believed the thought that we start these review exercises off with? My mind holds only what I think with God. Only. So as you do these review exercises, I invite you to sit with that idea. And again, if you're following along and you've arrived at lesson 141 at the same time I have, which a lot of you have not, you're either ahead or you just started, or this is something that you might want to do in the future. Either way, there's value in every single one of these live streams for you, because we're talking about universal spirituality. This is something that you can apply right now today, and I strongly recommend that you do that. So today's ideas, after we sit for a few minutes and just sit and be with and rest with the idea that my mind holds only what I think with God, then we proceed to the review lessons for today. Forgiveness is the key to happiness. Oh yeah. Forgiveness is the key to happiness. Forgiveness offers everything I want. Those are the two ideas. Forgiveness is the key to happiness. Forgiveness offers everything I want. Now, the reason that the workbook recommends that we spend a few minutes sitting with the idea that my mind holds only what I think with God, the reason for that is that when we sit with an idea like that, quietly, and let it sink in, let it penetrate us and permeate our being. When we let it sink in, we're bound to see the other ideas in a new light. And you may get very pronounced messages about how that's going to work and what that's going to look like in your life. They may come in the form of a feeling. You may or may not actually hear something or someone speaking to you. You may go forth today and get a message in another way. It may be something that you see when you're driving down the freeway or hear on the radio, or something that someone says, or you see a phrase which appears to be random on the internet, or you see something in nature that reminds you of today's idea. There are many, many, countless ways that the universe, the Holy Spirit, God, Source delivers messages to us. And what we're doing when we're practicing is we're working on our receptiveness to those messages. It's so we can receive the blessings, so that we can receive the messages that are all around us. So why would the Course say forgiveness is the key to happiness? Well, it helps us clear our minds. It rids us of subconscious guilt and fear. So if you follow the Course's thought system, everything that we see that appears to be outside of us, even inside our physical body, everything that we perceive is symbolic. Nothing unreal exists. This is part of the intro to A Course in Miracles, which says nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. That's straight out of the introduction. So what this means is that everything that we perceive from our us versus them, me, you, I, you, subject, object, perspective, everything that we perceive is not real. It is symbolic as we have this experience. It seems really very viscerally, gut-punchingly, it's my new word, gut-punchingly real to us, doesn't it? I mean, it really does. We need to look both ways before we cross a busy street. We do. Right? All of this seems deeply and viscerally real. So what these exercises do is it helps us withdraw our belief from that. And it's gradual because most of us need it gradually. We were talking yesterday about the fact that we don't have a magic wand where we can just wave it like Obi-Wan Kenobi and then boom, we're enlightened. Yeah. For most of us, it takes a while. It takes a while. Why? Because the conditioning is strong. It's strong, but it's impermanent like everything else in this world. Which means if we've chosen fear, we can choose love right now. We have the ability to choose yet again. And that's how we get out. Forgiveness is the key to happiness. Everything we see is symbolic of what? Of fear, of guilt. If we have an experience that's painful, when we forgive that experience, we're recognizing that it's a symbol of something that's inside of us. We are so powerful in the sense that we can make worlds, which we did. We made this one. Who we really are, in other words, oneness with God, is beyond all of this. And what we're doing with forgiveness is we are changing, we are adjusting our perception. If you want to say we're cleansing it, that works, that's fine. We're purifying it. That also works if you prefer that word. But what we're doing is we're seeing things correctly. It's a corrective device for the mind. And once we perceive everything correctly, that's what the Course refers to as the real world, so to speak. It refers to it as the world forgiven, things like that. When we reach that level, then, as the Course puts it, God himself takes the final step and we enter into communion, direct communication with God, which is beyond language, it's beyond subject-object duality, it's beyond words, it's beyond thoughts, even like the thinking mind thoughts that we're using right now. It's beyond all of that. It's where we're all headed. Forgiveness is the key to happiness, and naturally, the next idea, it offers everything that I want. Yeah, because deep down, we all want this. We could do a very fantastic job of convincing ourselves otherwise, but this is something deep down that we all want. And the thoughts that we think with God are real thoughts, so to speak. That is reality. And it cannot be threatened, which should give us all of the hope and all of the joy in the world, because it's who we really are and it's who we're going back to. And I know that you feel that. I know when you take the time to contemplate it, when you take the time for your particular spiritual practice, this is what we're doing, is we're paving the way for us to then have this experience. And one of the things that I love to do here on this live stream is pop in live and say hello to all of you. And we had some great conversation yesterday here on the show. I'm always open to doing that. So if you have comments or questions anytime, feel welcome to pop them in here to the comment thread. I'll get to as many of them as I can while I'm still live, broadcasting live here. And otherwise, I will reach you on the back end because I do look at the comments all the time. And if you're catching me on the replay, this replay is available, and just say hello, and I'm happy to answer any questions or comments. You don't have to catch this show live because, well, there are 24 hours in the day, and I'm only on here for about 20 minutes of those. So there's a lot of things going on. All right, Isabel, how are you? And Kristen, Pat, hi, good evening. Pat, how are you? So thank you all for tuning in here. And as I do every day, I want to invite you to commit and recommit to your spiritual practice, whatever that looks like for you, whatever, if you have rituals that you do, or if it's very free flowing, whatever that is for you. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you might have about that, because even though this live stream is specifically based on A Course in Miracles, it is universal spirituality, and it is presented in a self-study course, so we can take what applies to us in our own walk, in our own journey, and use it to help us. Yeah. All right. And Jenny, hi, how are you? Thank you for tuning in. So if you all have questions, if you all have comments of any sort, please feel welcome to leave them here. And even if you just want to pop in and say hello, please do that. This is a worldwide audience. So we literally actually right now have people from different continents here online. And this show airs Monday through Saturday here. I've been taking Sundays off here. And this is something that is a lot of fun for me, because each of us is in fact a teacher. That you don't have to point the camera on and turn the microphone on and broadcast to a worldwide audience in order to be a teacher, because each of us demonstrates our beliefs, our learning, every day, don't we? In how we interact with people, and how we interact with ourselves, and how kind we are, how patient, right? How loving, how compassionate, or not. Yeah, because clearly we have a yo-yo, wild ride kind of experience, and some days better than others, but we're always teaching. So my aim here is to help you get in touch with your inner teacher and ask what the meaning of forgiveness is. Ask what the meaning of these ideas will be for you in your life. And if you ask, you will be shown the answer. And naturally, it's not going to be necessarily right away, but it could be. All right. And Jenny, hello from the Netherlands. All right. Thank you. Yeah. And Isabel, working while listening. All right. So I love this. This is cool. Yeah. Well, thank you for tuning in. This is beautiful. You know, it's been years since I had a desk job in an office, but I did used to have that. And it was in the early days of social media and Facebook. Nevertheless, you can bet I had a window open, a pop-up window that was hidden. So when the woman that called herself our boss would come walking by all imperiously and stuff, just kind of hide the window. Of course, she never knew that I was talking to all kinds of people worldwide. Still getting work done, though. Anyway. This is, it's a lot of fun for me to be on here chatting with you all. So if you have questions, if you have comments either about today's material or spirituality in general, please feel welcome to leave them. And I thank you for tuning in here today. I will see you back here tomorrow.